Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Hi there, everybody. My name is Andrea Gordon. Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm super excited and happy today to be with you with my wonderful, wonderful manager, Tracy McBride. Thank you for coming today, Tracy.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Andrea. I was so honored you asked me to come, and I am thrilled to be here. But you know, I've asked you to throw me softball questions, being your manager.
Well, there are no softball questions, actually. Every question deserves a great answer. And
I totally agree with you. Really,
yeah.
There's no fluff. There's no time for fluff anymore
No
because
kidding.
we need to stay focused on what we do. Time is so valuable.
Exactly. Well, to that end, I met you, would you say 15 years ago, something like that?
Somewhere in that ballpark, yes.
Yeah, when you were an agent. And in the recent past, you have been elevated to the manager of the Berkeley offices for Compass. And so, what I wanted to talk to you today, I don't know how much you know about the podcast, but I started the podcast because of the NAR DOJ lawsuits and all of the Sitzer Burnett stuff, because it dawned on me that the American public doesn't really have any idea what all is involved in doing real estate. They think we just go like this and a house gets sold. And
Right.
therefore they don't understand our value, our worth. They don't understand the myriad of positions and jobs and sets of ideas that we have to deal with and work with within real estate. So the question I'm going to ask you first, which is not a softball question, is what is the difference for you in being an agent versus being a manager? How has it played out in your life?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I do want to respond to your whole idea of starting this podcast. What a constructive way to explain to both anyone in our real estate community or others what it is that we do, because unless you witness it, it's hard to really know.
Exactly.
So in terms of the differences between being an agent and being a manager, well, first of all, I think everything has been a little harder than what I was expecting. Being an agent was harder than what I thought it would be. Being a manager is harder, a little bit harder than what I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so honored to have this role because trust is involved in everything we do. Trust is the huge part of being an agent. It's a huge part of being a manager, and the agents really trust me. We problem solve together. We just, we have to be open and honest about any issues that come up. Of course, we're humans. Either mistakes or not as good choices happen sometimes, and that it's okay. It's just life. And then we look to the solutions to do that. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that agents probably don't realize that managers do, just like the clients don't realize what the agents fully do behind the scenes.
And
So
that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to understand what you exactly do.
well, again, good question, because it's every day is different, like being an agent, but there's actually quite a bit of coordination and learning on all fronts. I always think of all of the information and things we have to do as being a multifaceted ball that we turn around to the different facets of the things we work on. So some of our facets are, Compass as a company, what we're learning about nationally, and both good practices, what we can learn from sales managers, even in other states or other areas or NorCal region. Then we have maybe more of our regional area, which is in the East Bay, what we're finding, what we're sharing. We're always sharing problems as agents talk among themselves too. What was a problem, what was a solution, or what was a best practice, how was that solved? And then we have our interesting inner East Bay region, which I really equate somewhat, in some ways, myself personally, not everyone will agree, with San Francisco. San Francisco has so many districts and areas, and yet they're all
Mm-hmm.
very different, but they connect with each other because it's all one city. Our Berkeley, Oakland, Alameda, plus Kensington, Piedmont, El Cerrito, Albany, Richmond, San Leandro, all these areas were all very close, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a large geographic area. So our mini region with Oakland and Alameda, it's a lot of coordinating with those sales managers because our agents work in all those areas. So we want
Mm-hmm.
to share information. So in terms of what it is that I do, I'm often planning content for agents. Of course, I want to keep the agents, best practices, friendly reminders. Agents
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of this information, but we always need friendly reminders, best practices, because there's such a volume of information. There's not one checklist that anybody
Right.
just go to. Here's the checklist. That's your job. You're done. There's a lot of thinking involved and remembering and connecting the dots of different
Mm-hmm.
things together.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, best practices, compliance, always good, but also, how do we keep it fresh? How do we keep agents motivated to keep going? Because no matter what the agent level is, I hate to say it this way, but there's always room for improvement. There's always
Absolutely.
room to grow. There's room
Mm-hmm.
to learn. There's room to grow your business if you want to, which really, if you're just standing still, you're diminishing. So we
Mm-hmm.
really all need to grow. The company
Mm-hmm.
needs to grow. The agents need to grow their own business. So there's plenty to do. And then we also try and keep it fun and support community. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another leg of the whole vibe of the office,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, a holiday party or just gathering for a happy hour or maybe a lunch and learn, whatever that might be, or maybe encouraging agents to have events at the office, all that sort of thing. And sharing, what I've really been enjoying is agents sharing their community events, bringing them to the office to then inspire others to network in their community that way, to be a really pillar of their community.
That's great. And what I would also say about a manager for me, because I've thought about this a lot, actually, how these things function. What I remember when I was at Coldwell Banker, our manager there was forced into basically being a bean counter in a lot of ways. She was looking at the number of copies people were making, and she was looking at how much it costs to keep employees, happy, and bonuses and stuff like that. And her focus shifted very profoundly away from the agents themselves. And what I have always thought is that the manager of an office, first off, I wouldn't have your job for the world. I think I've told you that before, because everybody's always coming to you upset about something. There's a problem. Somebody sold the house twice. Somebody somebody called an ADU a legal unit.
It happens.
And so you're always having to deal with that stuff and interfacing with attorneys and with our broker of record, Kathy Maringer. You're always having to deal with that kind of stuff, along with all the bean counting stuff, along with keeping the personnel that are the front desk help, all of the AEMs,
The support,
agent
yeah.
success, all of the support people. So that's a very, very hard job right there.
It's
And
a lot.
yeah.
It's a lot of balloons in the air to hold on to at any one time. You're absolutely right. But there is some element of the bean counting, I will admit, but I've sort of lowered that in some priorities, although it's still present. But,
Right.
proportionately, that can't take up as much focus as what I think are the other important things. When agents do their best, when agents get another closed transaction as a result of thinking beyond and growing their business, that's always a win. So yes, there's problems, but there's a win. There's often a
Yeah.
win there, which is
Oh,
yes.
and you're really amazing, because like even somebody like me who's a top producer, you will text me when I close something and tell me, great job, whatever. And I know it sounds stupid, but it actually really buoys people up when you do stuff like that. And the manager, it has your back. I know absolutely, utterly, and completely that you have my back in any situation. You're not, if you can help me and if you can make sure I don't fail, you're going to make sure I don't fail. And that is a worth gold. That is a
Well,
really brilliant thing.
well, it is. Oh, thank you for saying that. But it is because I always felt when I was an agent, it's lonely. You're
Hmm.
like out there alone, and at any moment you can be left, what is it that the cheese stands alone? I mean, you could be really alone, and that's not a good feeling. So it is good to have someone who's in your court, who's there to not only have your back, but also just like support you. There's things that are going to come up, and that's one of the things that I've really done some personal growth and learning, just the volume of problems that can come up. There's always a solution. There's probably more than one solution. Things can be broken down into smaller bits, and then we work through it, and
Right.
we find the right way forward. But it is expected. One almost has to expect this. One doesn't want this problems to happen, but you almost have to expect it in our business because there can be bumps in the road, something that someone just can't foresee happening.
Absolutely. I'm always shocked. I mean, I think in what, 2 weeks, I will have been a realtor for 27 years. And it's just fascinating to me that even still, I pretty much know every trick in the book. I know most things that can happen. And as things come at me from left field, even still, where you're just because you're dealing with human beings
Yeah.
and that's volatile just in and of itself.
It's always a little different too. I mean, whatever the situation is, it might be similar to something else, but it's a little bit different. And then there's the nuts and bolts of a problem, and then there's the emotional side,
Mhm.
which because it's such an emotional component of the housing, where we live, what our life is like, it has such a huge impact on us. Naturally, agents, the personality type of so many agents is, I want to help this other person. I am
Right.
really giving it my all. I am thinking about them. So then when the client maybe has an emotional reaction, it naturally permeates to the agent. And what does the agent have to do with all that? I mean, sometimes where does it go? I mean, I
Right.
encourage agents to vent with me if they
Mm-hmm.
can, not with staff. I would say that. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, it is a matter of dealing with the emotional side as well as the nuts and bolts side. Separating those two can be
Right.
difficult.
It takes a lot of emotional intelligence to do your job very seriously. And you do it incredibly well.
Mhm.
My other thought is, how do you find a balance for yourself in the midst of all of this? Because it's like 24/7. I know I have called you at 8 o'clock at night. I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, our brains, I think something happens after you've been an agent, and maybe I would equate it to being like, I'm not an athlete, but if I imagine an athlete, they're like always thinking about staying in shape and running and being on it. Once you're an agent, it's like something gets wired in your brain. You're always kind of an agent. You're always thinking real estate. It's always
Mhm.
like the light is always partially on. I can think about real estate and get into it at any moment.
Mhm.
So yes, I think one acclimates to that feeling a little bit. I don't know that we can just turn it off because we do have to be ready to jump at a moment. But certainly I spend a little bit more time on weekends and gardening and other things where I sort of get involved in something else for a bit and take a break. And we really, as agents, we really live our lives. Every moment is so,
Right.
in managers, every moment is important. And
Right.
that's, I think, how we can say, like, oh my goodness, I just spent an hour or 2 hours in the garden. That was amazing. We don't
Right.
really take it for granted because we realize how valuable the time is.
I think that's really true. I know that when I took a little bit of time over the Thanksgiving holiday, even though I did go on a listing appointment and I did get the listing on Thanksgiving. um, when I took the little bit of time that I did just to be a human being, and it was really kind of interesting to me how hard it was for me to unplug from what it is that I do every day and just take the time to read a book that wasn't for my PhD program or read a book that wasn't real estate related. Um, so another question I have for you is, we have these office meetings every single week. Are you the person that puts together the content for the meeting itself? Are you the person who is arranging for the people that come through by and large?
By and large, yes, but I pull the content from many sources. So
Mhm,
again, it's those many balloons in the air. We have content from our broker. We have
mhm,
content from our NorCal group.
mhm,
I get content from our local association. I also pull in content that I think is part of the vibe of our office, like talking about community, uh,
mhm,
giving kudos to whoever it might be, whether it be another agent, staff, a vendor, a
mhm,
client, and so on. So it's a bit of looking for a well-balanced meal,
mhm.
a lot of different content there. So yes, finding guest speakers, asking for input, and maybe weaving that into the content as well. So responding to agents is a factor.
Wow. So far I've got having every agent's back, setting up the weekly meetings, setting up all the parties and extracurricular activities, dealing with every single problem all of us have, and having, the good sense to give yourself a little bit of time to be a human being in there. What would you say is the hardest part of your job?
Um, let's see. I think that finding priorities can be a little bit tricky because that takes a moment to assess.
Hmm.
And there might be a problem that needs to be solved versus maybe growth and planning that I want to factor in. So those are two different priorities and, time needs to get those to happen. So it just takes a moment. You have to stop and think. And
Hmm.
I love that part of my job where I can stop and really think what makes sense here. Some parts that might be challenging might be, frankly, not reaching agents. Like if I
Hmm.
can tell an agent hasn't been listening to the best practices,
Hmm.
or that's a little disappointing, frankly. And
Hmm.
it doesn't serve them well, and then they get stuck, and then we have to solve a problem.
Right,
That can be hard to see,
right.
but I need to always examine what can I do differently to communicate to the agents that are not hearing this information.
Okay. Recently, I had to fire someone, and for me, the hardest part of my job is firing people because I hate that. I hate hurting somebody's feelings. Even if they're not doing a good job, it's very challenging for me. You helped me a lot through all of that, as did my coach Vonda. She's always saying, hire slow, fire fast, and all these other sort of little catchy phrases that she has, but the reality is it can be very, very difficult. Has it been hard for you when you've had to let personnel go?
Well, it's certainly conflicting because it gets back to there's emotions involved, and there's also some nuts and bolts of our life that we have to do as part of our business. So
Hmm.
certainly the emotional side, we appreciate people, and everybody
Hmm.
has something to contribute, and we value their contributions, and we like working with a lot of, most everybody, as
Hmm.
is very most on the most part very pleasant to work with. So it can be very difficult if there's some sort of rub there between the nuts and bolts of the job and the emotional side. Of course, I wish everybody well, but sometimes, it's about finding a good fit. Where's a good fit
Right,
for somebody?
right. Is that person really in the right position? Are they really going to succeed as a person? One of
Mhm.
my assistants was really, really good, and she also obviously hated her job. And it took me 5 years to get rid of her because she hated her job. It was just patently obvious that she hated it, but she was actually really good at it. So,
Right. That's an
so
interesting combination. I mean, certainly
yeah,
it helps in our business because we have to adapt, we have to turn on a dime to have some positivity here. and
Exactly.
see the upside and everything. One can see it's easy to slippery slope down to the negative side,
Yeah.
but there is always an upside, I truly believe. And that might be under the surface a little bit, and we just need to elevate that to see what the upside is.
So when you are thinking about the future and what's going to come up in the near future for real estate, yourself as a manager, our company, what do you think?
Hmm. Well, we've been through so much, right?
It's been tough.
Every year, and just in phases of,
Mhm.
other competitive brokers, other new rules, up in market factors, interest rate changes, uh, you know, different types of inspections, are different forms now, tenant rules, we keep adapting.
Mhm.
So my thought is a little bit kind of expecting those changes to come along,
Mhm.
work with them, and work with them in an organized way that we can absorb and keep going and not let it throw us off
Mhm.
course.
Mhm.
One thing that I've learned over the course of my work is that I get upset when I have my idea of the things I need to get done and I get thrown off course. I get mad at
Mhm.
myself when that happens. So I think kind of staying the course, but trying to factor in whatever the new items are we have to factor in. Where are we headed? You know, it's a competitive business. And
Mhm.
we know this, and we have to stay competitive both as a company and as agents. So this is why we have to keep bringing ourselves to the next level, keeping it fresh for ourselves, as we talked about, the positivity going, and the desire to do the best we can always, and explaining that to our clients so that we're treating everybody with such respect that
Mhm.
they can understand our value. Because if you just make decisions for somebody else, that's not a good way to work. We
Right.
are always sharing what we know, and being very open about that. I think we'll always, have a business because we're acting that way. Where else do you get this kind of service? Where else in the world right now do you get the service of a real estate agent who just is thoughtful, can pivot, can help you with resources, give you really this customized care? I mean, it's
Right.
very rare.
Right. Right. I mean, AI is not going to be able to do that. I read that article the other day about the AI that told some depressed person that they should go kill themselves, and I was like, "Wow." Well, it
Right.
was logical. It was logical based on what the guy was saying. AI made the response that they thought was agreeing with the guy. So,
Yeah, it's, keeping a level head, keeping it
yeah.
up to what makes sense. Yeah, AI is, who knows where, I think AI will certainly have many benefits for us.
Hmm.
Again, it's seeing how do we make this tool work for us in a positive way? Is it helping to take notes at a client meeting to then do a recap? I know my doctor's office does that now, for example,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah. One thing I have noticed being in graduate school again is that AI lies. Like
Mhm.
the other day I attempted to cheat on my annotated bibliography because I couldn't figure out how to do it right. And AI made up a bunch of books and they did not exist.
Oh, wow.
It's yeah, I mean, I had actually looked up the books. I was just asking the AI to put it into APA style for me, so I wasn't really cheating, but it was really fascinating to me that when I asked it to create an annotated bibliography around what it was I was studying, it just made up a bunch of stuff that it thought I might want to see in there. It's
Well,
dangerous.
it is dangerous, and that is surprising that it would even do that. But look at you. So you reacted with, I'm thinking, I'm observing this. I'm not just like, push the button and turn the page. You're really
Correct.
checking that everything is up to the level that you want it to do. So that's where it gets back to best practices. You're
Right.
always doing your personal best. I mean, that's, I think, why you and I can have good conversations is
Mhm.
we're always looking for what is the best way to do this.
Right. Right. Well, you're delightful. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and telling me a little bit about your life as a manager. And I know that you have helped me phenomenally. And the reason I wanted to have a manager on today, folks, was because the manager for a realtor is probably the very most important person in your real estate life. Genuinely, clients will come and go, but the people you work with are forever. And so you want to have good relationships with your colleagues, and you also really need to have a true intellectual connection and companion in your manager, because they're there to help you. You're their client. So if you can find that manager, I've always felt this, that managers were they're the linchpin of an office. Our office in many ways takes on your personality when you think about it. We have a great office, by the way. It's the culture of the office. Everybody's really kind and nice and focused, and it's not all about dog eat dog or how much you can sell. It's about how you can do it right, how you can do it right and enjoy yourself, how it can be of benefit to other people. And I attribute a lot of that to you, Tracy. I think that you have created a different culture than the one that I originally came to when I came to Compass. It's very different than Michael Schwartz is a great manager. I'm not going to say anything negative about him, but his focus was on stats and on, market trends and graphs and things like that. So he got us all focused on that stuff. And I think you've been sort of able to turn it around so that it focuses us back on what is really, really important, which is our humanity.
Oh, I love that. I love how you put that all together. And, when we are well above average, and that's where I want to see all the agents be. And also we are a community, because we are colleagues and we're helping each other.
Exactly. Well, thank you for your time today. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this podcast comes out down the line. And I guess I will see you at our next meeting.
Fabulous. It was such a pleasure to be here, and really an honor. I'm so thrilled that you asked me.
Aw, have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon, signing off from Realizations. See you next time.